Appendix I, the Holodomor. The Holodomor was a man-made famine that occurred in Soviet Ukraine from 1932 to 1933. It is also known as the Terror-Famine and Famine-Genocide in Ukraine, and resulted in the deaths of millions of Ukrainians. The term Holodomor is a combination of the Ukrainian words for hunger, holod, and extermination, more. The exact number of deaths is uncertain, but most estimates range from 3.5 million to 7 million victims. The Holodomor has been recognized as a genocide by 16 countries, as well as by the Vatican, the European Parliament, and the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe Parliamentary Assembly. Timeline of events. 1917, the Russian Revolution leads to the establishment of the Soviet Union. 1928, Joseph Stalin introduces the first five-year plan for the collectivization of agriculture. 1929, the Soviet Union begins the forced collectivization of agriculture, including in Ukraine. 1932, the Soviet government increases Ukraine's production quotas by 44%, ensuring that they could not be met. Harsh measures are imposed to prevent peasants from withholding grain. August 7, 1932, the Law of Spikelets is enacted, making even the smallest theft of collective property punishable by execution or 10 years in a labor camp. November 1932, Ukraine fails to meet the impossible grain procurement quotas. Punitive measures are imposed, including the seizure of all foodstuffs and a ban on trade. January 22, 1933, Ukrainians are prevented from leaving their villages in search of food by the introduction of new internal passport requirements. Spring 1933, the death toll from starvation reaches its peak. In some regions, whole villages are depopulated. August 1933, the Soviet government begins to conceal the consequences of the famine by banning the use of the word famine and falsifying demographic data. Causes and context. The Holodomor was a consequence of the Soviet policy of forced collectivization, which aimed to consolidate individual landholdings and labor into collective farms. This policy was accompanied by the forced requisitioning of grain and other foodstuffs, leaving farmers and their families with insufficient food to survive. The famine was exacerbated by the Soviet government's rejection of outside aid, restrictions on the movement of people and goods, and the concealment of the famine's true extent. Many scholars argue that the Holodomor was a deliberate act of genocide against the Ukrainian people, aimed at suppressing Ukrainian nationalism and ensuring Soviet control over Ukraine. Legacy and remembrance. The Holodomor had a profound impact on Ukrainian society, culture, and demographics. It is estimated that the population of Ukraine decreased by 10 to 25% as a result of the famine. The Soviet government denied the existence of the famine for many years, and it was only after Ukraine gained independence in 1991 that the full extent of the Holodomor began to be publicly acknowledged and studied. In 2006, the Ukrainian parliament passed a law defining the Holodomor as a deliberate act of genocide and made public denial of the Holodomor a criminal offense. Holodomor Remembrance Day is observed annually in Ukraine on the fourth Saturday of November. Memorials to the victims of the Holodomor have been erected in many Ukrainian cities and towns, as well as in other countries around the world.